Former presidential candidate Marianne Williamson, she released her 2020 endorsements, including some people taking on the Washington establishment. Among the 31 names listed, 3 notable ones: Michaela Wilkes, J.D. Schulten, and Shahid Buttar.
Those 3 contenders all launched insurgent campaigns to unseat longtime incumbents. The list is also reflective of the ideas Marianne ran her presidential campaign on and would like to see represented in Congress. And she joins us now via Skype for more on all of this. Marianne, it is so great to see you.
Oh, it's always so great to see you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne.
And one quick clarification. So Shahid and Michaela are both running to unseat Democratic longtime incumbents. Right. J.D. Schulten running to unseat Steve King, another longtime incumbent, but of course the Republican Party. Marianne, what made you decide to back some challengers to the people who hold positions of power in this town?
I think it's obvious that the Democratic Party is not yet mounting the kind of opposition to the Trump presidency that is necessary. And I think that there are many people in Congress who have been there for so many years, and they're playing a game that I'm not sure is exactly the game we need to be playing right now. When you look at someone like Keita Haynes in Nashville, she's running against a conservative blue dog Democrat. This man has been there for 23 years. Keita is a woman who graduated from college. She was then incarcerated on a trumped-up marijuana charge for 3 years. She came out. She went to law school. She became a public defender. This is new blood. This is new energy. This is what is necessary. There are so many people who have been there for so long, and it's like their mindset is stuck a couple of decades back. And when you look at something like, let's say, the $738 billion National Defense Authorization Act that came from the Democrats, it's time now. It's time now to really play this game in a different way and get some new people in there. Also, I think progressives sometimes don't perhaps realize what fabulous people are running. Keita Haynes, Julie Oliver in Texas, Mike Siegel in Texas, J.D. Schulten, and he came so close last time to unseat Steve King, Nate McMurray in rural New York. You know, when you look at someone like AOC, she's a star. She just bursts forth. Well, not everybody has that kind of magic, but they're still great candidates. And too many progressives, I think, don't know who these people are. So I made the endorsement list because when you look into these people, most congressional candidates do not win the first time out. They get their name recognition. Too many times we say, well, so-and-so can't win. That's not the point. Help them get their name out. And the people on my endorsement list, there are many of them who can win if we give them the support that they need.
By endorsing these challengers to the Democratic leadership, you're kind of touching the third rail of so much of establishment politics, which is that many of these people, because they have so much of the power, try to retaliate against powerful figures who even dare to endorse some of their own challengers. How have you thought about that in the context of your own role within the Democratic Party?
They had already voted me off the island. I mean, I'm just saying, why? No, I had already been voted off. That's part of the point here. I was in the belly of that beast for 1 year. I know how that game is played. And that's all the more reason why I'm as clear as I am that progressives, we know what happened in the presidential race. We need to now pivot psychologically and emotionally as well as politically and now say, okay, we're going to do it in Congress now. That's, I believe, the only hope for the Democratic Party, if you want to know my honest opinion.
And why do you feel such, I want you to dig into that idea of moving on sort of emotionally and psychologically, what that means, what people should focus their energy and attention on from the left, because I do think that there is a lot of despair. You know, obviously you endorsed Bernie Sanders. He came so close, and then all these forces, the media, his own campaigns, you know, I think there were missteps there that we covered as well. So I don't want to just like blame it on the media. But all these entrenched forces came and ultimately crushed that movement. And now it's sort of like, okay, what next? What do we focus on? What do we get excited about? How do we push forward? So what is your view of that?
You know, I've been referred to by some politically as the canary in the coal mine. Even before what they did what they did to Bernie. They'd done what they'd done, you know, little microcosm to me. So I'm very, very aware. But on the other hand, we can't just sit here and lick our wounds. We don't have time. We can't just remain in ain't it awful. We have to get busy. You know, politics is a tough game. And if you really want political change, you have to be willing to stand up and do that. We know what they did in the presidential election. On the other hand, I don't want to say anything that would contribute to the kind of cynicism that might make people sit out the race or even vote third party, because we have a menace to our democracy in the White House. He is a menace to our democracy. But when it comes to the House, listen, still, you can vote these people out, but we've got to get busy.
So, Marianne, how do you reconcile those positions? You're saying that it seems almost existential in your view in order to put Joe Biden in the White House, and yet you're also challenging Democratic leadership in Congress. How do you reconcile those two positions? Because the one that you're laying out for the presidential election is often the one that they use in order to elect and support Democratic leadership in their so-called resistance against President Trump.
There's nothing to reconcile here. It has to do with Donald Trump. This man is a danger to our democracy. And so to me, there can't even be a question about that. But the same work, listen, I hope with all my heart, I pray with all my heart that we will defeat Donald Trump in November. But the work that needs to be done starting the next morning is the same, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden who wins, because progressives have been sidelined. The progressive voice as a serious political force has been suppressed. We know this even within the Democratic Party. So what the Democratic Party will make its own decision. It will continue to suppress and sideline progressives, in which case I don't think progressives will stay after November. But until November, given the fact that Donald Trump is president, to me, I can only speak my own heart, we have to make sure that this man does not get a second term.
What do you make of the courage or lack thereof coming from this town on the left? I mean, just in terms of, even a lot of people aren't going out on the limb that you are, basically no one, in terms of the number of endorsements, both of challengers of prominent figures, but also challengers who may not make it across the finish line this time. There's also like a lack of courage around backing people who may not win this time, even though they're worthy of support, right? There's that level of courage. There's also a lack of courage, in my view, in terms of pushing back on the wholly inadequate and pathetic economic response that has gone overwhelmingly to the top rather than small businesses and the working people who are really struggling right now and lower income who are really struggling right now. Where are the heroes? I mean, who can we count on in this town? What have you made of this period?
Well, first of all, as you yourself covered on your show, I don't have personal relationships in Congress with these people. So I understand it's safer for me than it is for some of these people. I do understand that. On the other hand, how do Democrats expect to win in November? We cannot win only on the message that we're not Trump. Why don't the Democrats run on being the opposite of Trump? The opposite of Trump would be $2,000 a month. There should be $2,000 a month every month for every adult until this is over, $1,000 for every child, $1,000 a month after that. Every other country, look at countries like England, where they're giving 80% of the salary directly to people. Our $500 billion to corporations doesn't even ensure and enforce that money has to go to the people. And the CARES Act is just more of the same. We are doing more to protect corporate America during this crisis than we are to protect the safety, the health, and even the lives of the American people. To me, the winning card and the correct card is for the Democrats to stand for direct cash relief to people. How do I explain it? I don't know. You see on Twitter, you see a lot of congressional representatives wringing their hands. Say something, do something. And right now we have an obstructive element. We know that. And that is the Democratic leadership that has been there too long. And don't even get me started on the DNC, but you know it yourself.
Well, we always appreciate your perspective, Marianne. Thank you.
Always great to see you, Marianne. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next on Rising, Elizabeth Warren. She's hosting a big money fundraiser for Joe Biden, a tactic she rejected during the primary campaign. Our thoughts on that flip-flop when Rising continues.